Yep, you can go ahead.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am happy to be in front of you today. My name is Nikki Beasley, the Executive Director of Neighborhood Housing Services, and you have joined us in our COVID series of how COVID is impacting our finances. We have a great panel in front of you today who have assisted and supported us in different events. And now that we are adapting to our new normal, we have taken it to the virtual platform. So before we get started, I don't want to assume that everyone is Zoom experts, as many of us are, because that tends to be our only way of communicating these days. But I want to make sure you're familiar with the platform. At your bottom bar is where you will be communicating with us. Since this is a webinar, we do have everyone on mute. So the way that you will be able to communicate with us is by doing the question and answer bubble or the chat. And we will be taking questions throughout our presentation. So this will be a way to communicate with us. And we are also recording this series. So after this presentation, early next week, it'll be up on our website. So if you want to share or refresh your memory on what was discussed today, you will have that option. We have Simone, our property finance manager, who's going to be navigating us through the presentation and also fielding the questions. So we're happy you're here. As you know, our organization is committed to changing the narrative, not only in homeownership, but to the community narrative of what finance and legacy means to us. So we've compiled a great group of people to have that conversation. I want to just introduce you briefly to the folks that will be talking to you today. We have Lauren Peoples, an attorney with Peoples Attorney. She is going to be talking to us about wills and trusts and legacy planning. We have Siobhan Wright, a New York Life representative, talking about life insurance. Lazina Kelly Andrada, who is going to be talking to us about property casualty insurance with State Farm. And then Jason Matthews with Matthews Financial, an insurance and retirement broker, talking about retirement. So we're going to kick it off with attorney Lauren Peoples to open up the conversation about legacy planning.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lauren Peoples. I'm an attorney with the Law Office of Lauren Peoples. My office is in Alameda, but I'm at home now, so I'm adjusting like everyone else to the new normal and hoping and praying that soon we'll be able to go back to something close to normal. So hopefully everyone can hear me okay. I have a very brief presentation that I'd like to go through, but thank you again, Nikki and the Richmond Neighborhood Housing Association for the invitation. I always enjoy speaking to this group, although I like to see faces. So I'm visualizing these phone numbers and these names on the side. I'm picturing your faces. Some of you got pajamas on, I can already see it. Okay, so if we can begin with my slides.
Hold on one second.
Perfect, and let's go to the next slide. So I always start off with a reference to my grandmother, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of background on me. This is my grandmother, Sybil Sorrell. She did estate planning, and she is really my introduction to estate planning. She drafted a living trust that my family still relies on to this day. We have property in the trust, and I am the trustee. And so we continue to honor her legacy from the planning that she did. So I just kind of want to connect this person to you, not only because she's important to me, but because she's an example of how you can plan for your family, and you don't have to leave them with, a bunch of burden. You can actually leave a gift that goes on for years. She passed away in 2012, and we are still receiving monthly residual benefits of the planning that she did. So I always like to start with that. Next slide. So from an estate planning attorney's perspective, The impact of COVID-19 really is just, we start with the numbers, we start with what's happening in the country. So this is a chart, a graph from the CDC of all of the cases. This is not the deaths will be on the next slide, but this is all of the cases of COVID-19, at least as of yesterday. These are the numbers. And so all of you probably have heard this already. Let's go to the next slide and let's look at the deaths. So this talks about the number of deaths that we've seen in the country related to COVID-19. And this is startling. So this is why the work that we're doing is now so critical, because there is something that is affecting so many of us, and because we don't know who might catch it and the significance or the severity of the illness when you do catch it. Many people are recovering, which is great, but there are still a growing number of people who are dying from this. And so we're going to begin to see the consequences of all of these deaths on our country, on our society. And so planning now, thinking about how you can protect yourself from illness and protect yourself and your family in the event of death is now, that conversation is now more important than ever, because we have a very real threat. We've always had a threat. I mean, none of us know how we're going to go, but with what's going on right now in the country, it is very clear that we are all at risk of exposure, and we don't know what the impact is going to be. So, you know, the days are gone where we could perhaps procrastinate, put this work off, delay, or think, you know, this may not impact me. And hopefully it doesn't impact any of us, but the threat is a lot closer than previously. So let's go to the next slide. I found this chart to be helpful because it kind of shows us where COVID-19 falls in relation to other diseases and other issues that we've dealt with as a society. So if you look at the projections for COVID-19 for this year compared to cancer, it's kind of close. I mean, this is startling, and I really hope that I'm not, you know, making anyone depressed. I've definitely suffered from some higher anxiety and stress as a result of all this news, so that's certainly not my intention. But my goal is for us to be faced with the actual numbers so that we can see what this threat is and plan for it. But COVID-19, as you can see, is, you know, right smack dab in the middle of some of these other more established threats and illnesses. But when I saw how close it has the potential to be to cancer and the death, many of us know someone that has passed away from cancer. So if COVID-19 reaches these numbers, it could potentially exceed the threat of cancer. And so that means that many of us are going to know someone or be affected directly from COVID-19. So that's just trying to give us some context on what this means. And all this means, let's go to the next slide. What this means from an estate planning perspective is really that there is no time to waste, period. There is just literally no time to delay in getting your documents done. And so if you've attended any of these workshops in the past, you've heard me talk about 4 critical documents. And I usually will start with a revocable living trust. But now I switched up the order for today's presentation. And the reason for that is because some of us may not have an opportunity to get before an attorney and get a living trust prepared. And we may need to do something right away where time is of the essence. And so that's where your last will and testament is going to be your best friend. Everyone who is participating in today's workshop should have a will, period. Okay, I am not joking about that. So a last will and testament is a document that directs how your property is going to pass at your death. Okay, it also dictates who is responsible for managing that process. And if you have minor children, then it also gives you the opportunity to name or nominate a guardian for your minor children. So with all of that power, it is very important. Now, the thing about a will that differs from a trust is that it only takes effect when you pass away, but it is still critical because this may be the only document that you are able to do. And I won't, go very deep into this presentation, but just know that from a legal standpoint, capacity, meaning your mental ability to understand what's going on and the documents that you're signing, capacity to sign a last will and testament is lower than the capacity required to establish a living trust. So if this is someone who's been impacted by COVID-19, perhaps they're on some type of medication, their understanding may be impacted as a result of the illness. They might still have sufficient capacity to sign a will, but they may not have sufficient capacity to sign a trust. So a will is a safe bet, a safe way to transfer your property, even if you can't, for whatever reason, do a living trust, whether that's because you can't afford to do a living trust, whether that's because you can't meet with someone to prepare it for you. A will is something you can do yourself. Literally, you can pull out a piece of paper and write down on the piece of paper, I, Lauren Peebles, want my house to go to Simone, and I want my car to go to Jason, and you sign it, and that is a sufficient legal document. We can take that document to probate court and have that administered as a will. It is not the most comprehensive tool because there are other tools that will accomplish more for you. But if time is of the essence, if you find out that you are ill and now you're in the hospital and then soon in ICU, the last will and testament may be the only document that you're able to do, because at that point, they're not allowing people to come to see you. And it's probably going to be unlikely that someone's going to be able to prepare a more comprehensive document for you. So last will and testament. But if you are healthy enough to be on this call or on this Zoom, you should certainly consider doing something more comprehensive. The next document is your advanced healthcare directive. And I usually talk about this last, but I've moved this up in the presentation because this document is especially critical for what we're facing now with the COVID crisis. Because if something happens to where we get this illness and then we have to be hospitalized, from what I understand, in certain individuals, this illness is moving very rapidly. And you may not have a whole lot of time to decide what type of treatment you want or what type of treatment you don't want, especially if you become terminally ill or if you're unconscious for whatever reason. So having an advanced healthcare directive will allow you to determine ahead of time, and for the benefit of your family and friends and medical providers, what type of treatment you want. It also allows you to name who is responsible for handling your body and all of those things. And I saw maybe a couple of weeks ago, they were restricting funerals to 10 people. I'm really hoping that they've lifted that, but if they haven't, funerals were limited to 10 people. In advanced healthcare directive, I've been advising my clients that they should, if you know your 10 people, you may want to update your advanced healthcare directive to name the 10 people that you want at your funeral. That's a really tough choice to make. And maybe you decide that you don't want a funeral altogether. You can certainly create carve-outs in your advanced directive that deal specifically with COVID-19. The next document will be your financial power of attorney. That is going to allow you to name someone to step in to handle your financial matters in the event you aren't able to handle them for yourself. So for example, if you contract COVID-19, and even if you survive or recover from the illness, but perhaps you are quarantined and can't go outside, can't go to the bank, can't file your taxes, even though they extended that deadline, but you can't handle all of the same business that you typically handle because you are now in somebody's basement waiting to get better, or God forbid at the hospital, or even worse on an intensive care, then if you name someone as your power of attorney, they have legal authority to act on your behalf and to represent your best interest, which can be very helpful in making sure that there's no interruption in your quality of life, so that when you do recover, everything's still on track, your bills were still being paid, and that people who have your best interest at heart have the legal support or the legal basis that they need to talk to other professionals about your business. Because I'm sure many of you probably will agree that you've tried to make phone calls maybe for your mom or your dad, and they say, well, you're not on this account, you're not authorized. Well, this document is what's going to allow a person to represent somebody else. Now, this document terminates when the person passes away. So God forbid, if you acquire this illness and you die from it, then this power of attorney is going to terminate. And then we'd be looking to the last will and testament or the living trust to give us instructions on the next steps. So our final document is the living trust. And the reason why I say that this is more comprehensive is because it combines some of the elements of the other documents that we named. For example, if you become incapacitated, your living trust will allow your trustee to take action for you even while you're still alive. So you may not have the mental capacity. Remember, again, we talked about the different standards of capacity. If you're on some type of medication and perhaps you don't understand what's going on, your trustee is empowered to start acting on your behalf while you're alive, which is different from the last will and testament. You got to be dead for the last will and testament to be relevant. A living trust is a bit more expensive to establish than a last will and testament, and the signing requirements are also a little bit different. It should be signed by the person who creates it and signed also by a notary, versus the last will and testament. If you write it in your handwriting, it's good to go. Or you can get 2 witnesses and usually that's good to go. Now, a living trust doesn't necessarily have to be notarized, but most people are familiar with it being notarized. And so we haven't really tested out whether someone's going to accept it or not. But I do believe that we're going to see a lot more of these types of cases in probate court being litigated, because folks are going to die before they have an opportunity to finalize all of this or to get it signed appropriately, or to get their deeds transferred over with the county recorder's office, because folks are closed and businesses are closed. So we're going to see, I'm curious to see how the law shifts after COVID-19, but at least from how things are going now, these are the 4 documents that you need, and this is the way that you need to establish them. Okay, next slide. And I'll move kind of quickly because I suspect that I may be running out of time. So this is just a slide to show you the difference between a will and a revocable trust. Your trust is going to allow you to avoid probate, and I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but I'm happy to email this presentation to anybody who wants a copy of it. But one of the things that I want to highlight is the privacy component. So your trust is private. I get a lot of calls from family members who want to know, thank you, Nikki. Okay, I'm good on time. I get a lot of calls from family members who want to know, well, my mom had a trust or my dad had a trust and I need to get a copy of it. Well, there's no required public place where your trust has to be lodged or filed or given. If I can create a trust and name, my side boyfriend in Jamaica, and no one has to know that if it's my choice for them not to know it. So it's private versus a will, depending on the size of the estate. If your estate in California exceeds a certain dollar amount, it has to go through probate. And if it goes through probate, it is public. Court proceedings are public. Anybody can show up. Documents are placed on the court's website. Anybody can download those documents. And so some people really don't feel comfortable knowing that their neighbor is going to know how much money they had when they died. And so that's something to consider. At least for me, that's something that's really important. With the trust, there's an expense prior to death because you have to pay to establish it. You still probably have to pay to establish a will, but the cost is a little bit different. Versus with the will, the expense, you realize that after death, because you're going to have to pay your probate expenses. And so probate has a really bad reputation. I'm a probate and estate planning attorney, so I don't think of it as bad as most people do. But if you feel like you can't afford to do planning right now, you can perhaps rely on the probate process. So that's a strategic decision that you can make. But a living trust, generally for most people, is the way that they want to go. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, COVID-19's impact. So these were just really some of the things that I thought of when I was preparing for this presentation. The one impact that I'm seeing a lot of is the timing. Folks are waiting until it's too late. By the time they call me, their loved one has already been diagnosed with COVID-19, and now they want to do all this planning. Oh, I need a power of attorney for her, or I need to do a will, or we want to do a trust for them. If you get to the point where you are already hospitalized and now no one can get to you, no one can call you on the phone because now you're being isolated or quarantined, I wouldn't know how to service you at that point. And my concern is that, are you making thought out decisions that aren't impacted by this rush? So the one thing that I can say that I'm seeing is that COVID-19 is certainly impressing upon people the importance of doing this work. But I hope that what you take away from this presentation is, don't wait until you get this disease if it's in the stars for you to get it, and I pray that it's not. Don't wait until then. We already know that the threat is here, so let's prepare ourselves for the possibility that we might get it. The next impact is, of course, unemployment. I do not need to remind you all that unemployment is at an all-time high. Folks are losing their jobs. They are either furloughed or taking a pay cut. And so they may not be able to afford planning at this point because of these issues. And so I know at my office, we're certainly sensitive to that. So if someone is impacted by that in that way, it's very unlikely that we're going to turn them away. We will try to work with them in some way, but that can be a deterrent for folks to do the planning because they may feel like they just don't have the money. And if you just lost your job or are furloughed, then somebody asking you for, $1,500 to $3,500 to set up an estate plan is more than you can probably bear. Then the other impact is the inability to meet with professionals. So again, in my office, we really take the time to work with you, sit down with you, and help you understand the meaning of all of this. And part of number 3 goes back to number 1, which is the timing. You can't meet with your professionals. It's by Zoom. Many of my clients are elderly. They don't know anything about Zoom, so that impacts our ability to meet with them. Now, they may have loved ones who can set up Zoom for them, but then that requires somebody to go to their home, and that's kind of tricky. So again, this inability to connect and to meet has certainly impacted our ability to help everyone. That's starting to lift, and as we're seeing more businesses open, I'm mindful of what it will take for our firm to reopen and to begin to see clients from the public again, but presently we are not doing that. Then finally, the difficulty arranging witnesses. This is not as difficult as it was a month ago or 2 months ago. 2 months ago, there were no notaries. We couldn't get anyone who was willing to meet with clients to sign. And in California, they signed all these executive orders. They closed the court. They changed all this stuff that impacts your constitutional rights. But the one thing that they didn't approve was virtual notary, whereas they did that in New York, but they haven't done that here. It's a little bit better now because, you know, we're wearing masks and we kind of understand a little bit better about how to protect ourselves. But that was a real consequence of this disease, is because people didn't know. And so I was drafting documents for clients, but then they just had to sit there and they weren't able to get them signed because no one felt comfortable doing the signing, or having a notary come. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And I think I saw a question. How expensive is it to remove trustees and replace them with someone new? It is not necessarily expensive. It just depends. Usually, so what the question is, or at least the way I'm interpreting the question from D. Cannon, is how do you remove a trustee and name a new trustee in what I'm assuming is a revocable living trust. If I prepared the documents, if I prepared the trust, then it's not expensive at all. They're going to pay a fraction of my hourly rate because all I have to do is change a name. But if another firm prepared the trust, then it's going to be a little bit more costly, at least for me, because I have to review the work of the prior attorney. What I'm not going to do is take a document from you and then just cut out the name. And I have to make sure that you came with a solid document. So first I have to review it. So I would say anywhere from, you'd probably pay an attorney's hourly rate to a couple hours, depending on what their hourly rate is. Okay, so possible solutions. So we talked about on the previous slide the impact of COVID-19. And so now I want to just go through some very quick possible solutions to those issues. The first problem or issue or impact from COVID-19 was the timing. Folks are rushing or they just didn't do it in time. So a possible solution to that is to do it now. No, seriously, like right now, okay? This is not a game. If you are under the sound of my voice, you should leave from today's presentation with a commitment in your mind that you are at least gonna get a will, or at least get a will and an advanced healthcare directive. And then that way you can rest assured that if anything happens to you, if you go to the grocery store and somebody coughs, or you walk through some particles and you acquire this illness and you don't know what the impact is to you, that you've done your planning. Another possible solution to the issue of not being able to meet with professionals is, of course, doing it yourself. There are a number of resources online that will kind of support you in doing your own trust, doing your own will. And I have an asterisk there because, of course, I do not advocate this. I do not recommend this because these are the folks that end up coming in my office with problems. But if you have nothing, if this is all you can do, you might as well try to do it yourself. There's LegalZoom, there's Nolo Press, so you can, you'd have to take a lot of time to make sure you're up to speed on the instructions. So that is one solution if you can't meet with an attorney. And then if you do agree with me that this is not the type of work you want to take into your own hands, then figuring out a way to have virtual and telephonic meetings with a professional will certainly allow you to accomplish this. And then for the issue of witnesses, not being able to get witnesses, I think that as clients begin to familiarize themselves with the safety protocols recommended by the CDC, and making sure that the witnesses have masks or disposable gloves, or washing their hands, or sitting 6 feet apart, or that'll make people more comfortable and will allow more people to be able to witness. Because you might have to knock on a neighbor's door and have somebody, sign a will for you, witness a will for you, and they're not going to want to do that if they, come into a house and you're sick and coughing. But as long as you can maybe ensure that it's a safe and a sterile environment, then you'll put yourself in a better position. Next slide, which I think is my last slide. Yes, I am done. Okay, so this is my information. Our office is in Alameda. Again, we're not seeing clients from the public right now, but we hope that will change soon. And I enjoy fielding all types of questions related to estate planning and probate. So I went through this very quickly. So if I did not address your specific question, I invite you to email me and I will be happy to get back to you with an answer. You're also welcome to call me. Again, I'm working from home, so it may be a little delay in me getting back to you by phone. But again, thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that you all will consider doing some planning sooner than later.
Thank you for that, Lauren. And I have to say, I do appreciate your urgency. There's been so much information out there, but what we do know that whatever it is, it's serious and it is time for us to be proactive so that we're not reactive. So to Lauren's point, there are things that we can do today to ensure that we protect ourselves, and a little bit of something is a whole lot better than a whole lot of nothing. And as we get ready to transition, the last thing I will leave you with, and we talked about this in our April class, you know, we're not just sitting at home working. There is stuff happening outside, but because we are home, we are saving money on gas, transportation, clothes, food, toll. So if we've been mindful of those things, those are the extra dollars that can push us forward to take care of the things that we need to take care of. So thank you again, Lauren. And Lauren, do you mind if we forward the presentation to everyone that's on? Okay, so we will put the link into the chat box for people to have access to, and please take Lauren up on her offer to have a conversation if you need greater detail. And please, if questions come up throughout the conversation, we'll be addressing them later. But I want to go ahead and now change the direction of the conversation. We're going to talk about insurance. We have Siobhan Wright, a life insurance agent with New York Life. And I have to tell you, she's also been a great partner of ours and has been very successful in her career. And I hope that she shares a little bit about herself and how she got into the insurance business. So Simone, are we ready with Siobhan's presentation to get started?
Yes, I am ready. Siobhan, you want me to start it now?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, thank you so much. First of all, Nikki, again, thank you for having all of us, and I really appreciate the opportunity to have this platform to share a little bit about myself and New York Life. So welcome again, everyone. My name is Siobhan, and I started with New York Life over 3 years ago. I was a practicing nurse for over 30 years. You know, once a nurse, you're always a nurse. And so I absolutely love helping people. I really believe that part of my makeup is just, or part of being on the planet is to help people. And so I transitioned from a 30-year nursing career to New York Life. And it was probably one of the toughest and scariest things that I've ever done in my entire life. But it has been the most rewarding because it allows me to help people and families just in a different way. So I love helping families, business owners, medical professions develop sound financial strategies. And what does that mean? That means sitting down with families, creating a plan specifically for their needs, their budget, and something that specifically fits their situation. And so at the bottom, I have my email and my phone number. So at the end of the presentation, if you want to reach out to me, you want to email me, Simone will have all these slides ready for you guys, and you guys can reach out to me. Okay, Simone, you can go ahead and transition to the next slide. So Lauren did a great job talking about how COVID-19 is affecting everybody. And New York Life, I just kind of want to share with you, you know, what we are doing as we are changing and as the community is changing, as the world is changing. What is New York Life doing in this rapid transformative change? Well, you know, since we've all been doing the social distancing and it's created great isolation, things look really different. People are a little scared. People are having anxiety. But New York Life, you know, as an agent with New York Life moves really swiftly. You know, I've heard New York Life talk about we've survived, you know, 2008, the Great Recession. You know, we've been around since 1845, and they are a strong company. Well, being in this situation that we're all in now, COVID-19, I have been able to experience what people have talked about as far as it being a strong company. New York Life really moved really swiftly in getting all of our infrastructures in place for us to help our clients, because New York Life supported and really pride themselves in meeting with clients one-on-one. So that's what I did most of the time. I was on the road, driving all the time, which I absolutely love, meeting clients face-to-face. However, COVID forced us to transition, to change, and it was rapid, and it was scary, and it produced a lot of anxiety. But New York Life really moved swiftly to make sure that our clients, our agents, and the company presented themselves as a strong company, and to let people know that we're still here and we're still operating. Okay, you can transition to the next slide, Simone. So how has this changed New York Life? Well, again, it really hasn't. We are stronger than before, or as we were before. We continue to follow the same guidelines, principles. We remain one of the largest, strongest, and the most stable life insurance company in the United States. And our remarkable resilience during turbulent time hasn't changed. Like I said, you know, we survived the Civil War, the 1918 influenza pandemic, the 2018 financial crisis. And like I said, we've been around since 1845, so over 175 years. So that just tells you that when you're working with a company that goes through a turbulent time like we're in now, it's a strong company, and you want to be with a strong company when you are going through challenges, right? You want to make sure that the company is going to be around. Like Lauren, she talked about the strength of her company. She talked about, you know, being there and providing different resources and letting you guys know what needs to be in place. And that is what New York Life is doing. So New York Life is just showing people, other companies, the world, that we are going to still be standing, you know, no matter what is happening in the world. Okay, next slide, Simone. So what are we doing now, and what services do we provide? So before I talk about this slide, I just want to back up a little bit and just kind of share with you guys. So what have we done? New York Life has basically changed the entire infrastructure of our company. The entire company is working from home. We are doing Zoom meetings like crazy, like everybody else. And has it been a challenge? Yes, but it's like a family. We've all band together. We figured it out. They have created resources for all of us to work remotely. So if any of our clients want to reach out to us, we have Zoom meetings, we have phone call meetings, we have webinars, we have digital support items to send out to our clients. We are now doing our consultations on our comprehensive, you know, fact finding that we would normally do in person. We do it online, so that we provide all of the resources that we would normally provide to our clients before COVID-19. We just transitioned to do everything digitally. And so that just makes our clients feel like, you know, we haven't abandoned them. Our company is still running the same way it was before COVID-19. And I would honestly, and I would confidently say that New York Life is really a lot stronger, because we all had to band together and figure out what we needed to do to make sure that we are serving our clients, that we are, you know, making sure that they have what they need. And having what they need, what does that look like? Answering questions, picking up the phone, doing our annual reviews, providing our clients security, letting them know that all the cash value that they have in their life insurance policy, or if they have long-term care, or if they have an annuity, that everything is still in place. And so we've made it a point to reach out to our clients on a daily basis. I'm making over 100 calls a week, reaching out to our clients during this time of COVID-19, just to let people know that we are still here, that their policies are still in effect, And we also created a special benefits fund for anyone that is on the front line, that are the essential employees, people at the hospitals, the doctors, you know, people that are out there on the front line. If they don't have life insurance, New York Life set up a special fund for those families that in the event something happens and they don't have life insurance, they can reach out to New York Life and be qualified for this fund, even if they don't have a policy with us. So that's something that, you know, I don't know, I'm sure other companies have put things in place, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that New York Life is making every effort to make sure that our clients are covered. And even if they don't have life insurance policies with us, that they are covered. Okay, so what are we doing now and what services do we provide? So New York Life wants to make sure that our clients know all the options that they have, all the things that are available to them, like annuities and long-term care and conversations with the consultants. And so everything that we did before COVID-19, New York Life still has that in place. Okay, Simone, you can go to the next slide. So I just wanted to share with you some of the products that and services that New York Life offers. So of course, New York Life offers life insurance. That's our foundational product, and family protection and retirement funding and long-term care, annuities, business planning, and employee benefits. And I know that, you know, like Lauren said, a lot of times the things that people need to have in place, they don't think about that until it's too late, or either it's at the last minute, or, you know, so that's another reason, you know, Lauren and her business and myself, you know, because I love the way Nikki strategically put us all on here, because we all really are entities that everybody works with at some point in their life. And, you know, when you're working with one of us at some point in your life, you want to work with us before it's too late. You want to plan the life insurance now. You want to make sure your retirement funding is in place, long-term care. And I know a lot of people don't think about long-term care because they look at it as something, an old person, or either I don't need to even think about that until I'm in my 50s or 60s. But all of these really are things that you need to look at right now. You need to have conversations. You need to sit down and talk to professionals like myself and Lauren and all the other professionals that are on the phone before something like COVID-19 hits, so that when things like this hit, you're not taken by surprise, you don't panic. So you need to have these things in place. So if you haven't talked to a professional like myself about life insurance, or about retirement funding, or long-term care, or annuities, and business planning, if you're a business owner, you know, most business owners, all they think about, well, not all, but, you know, a lot of times they think about the business and paying their employees and keeping their business afloat. They don't think about retirement planning or who's going to take over their business if something happens to them, if they were to get COVID-19. Do they have something in place where they can keep the business going? Do they have something in place where if they pass away, that their family is not going to be left with, you know, something crazy that they can't figure out? And then one last thing, we offer employee benefits. So a lot of times, small business owners and business owners that have 2 employees up to 100 employees, offering benefits is expensive. And especially now, people with possibly being exposed to COVID-19 or having COVID-19, will they even qualify for certain benefits? Well, some of our benefits, you can qualify even if you have a particular illness. So those are some of the things that we want to make sure that people right now in the midst of this pandemic know that these services are still available, that we are available to talk on Zoom, on phone calls, you know, whatever we can do to make sure that we get this information out. That is what we want to do, because especially now, like, you know, we were having a conversation about, you know, since you're home, most people are home, you have an opportunity to kind of reassess your finances and strategically place allocations for things that are going to affect you in the future, that's going to affect your family in the future. So the time is now to think about those things that will help you leave a legacy for your family, because the things that we're talking about today is really not for you. You know, most of it, you know, retirement and annuities and long-term care, yes. But some of the other things that we've been talking about are really for you to set up for your family when you're no longer here. So it's a selflessness act that you need to take when you're planning these things out. So when we sit down with our clients, like I said, it's like going to the doctor. You can't go to the doctor, you can't come see me, you can't come see Lauren without us asking a lot of questions. We sit down, we ask you a lot of questions. Just like when you go to the doctor, they have to ask you a lot of questions so that they can understand how they can help you, so they can understand what services and products will be best for you and your family. So those are some of the things. So you might be thinking, well, I don't need this right now. I can't afford this right now. I'm too anxious and I just don't want anything else to think about. Well, it would be good to have the conversation, because then in the future, when you're ready, you know what your options are, versus not having a, you know, comprehensive understanding of what it is that you're waiting for or what you're going to plan for. Okay, the next slide. I think that might be my last slide. Is that my last slide, Simone? I think so.
Yes, that's the last slide.
Okay, so again, Nikki and Simone will make these slides available to you. And if you want to reach out to me, my contact information is there for you to reach out to me.
And Simone, do we have any questions for Siobhan before we hand it over to Rosina?
Sorry. Can you explain more about long-term care, and will COVID-19 be treated like cancer and life insurance?
No, it all depends on the effects that it had on their health, you know, because life insurance is based on health and age. And so New York Life, what they would do is just get all the medical information and make that decision. They're not going to just do a blanket no based on someone saying that they have COVID-19. They'll look at all their, you know, medical issues and take all that information and then make a decision. But it will not just be a blanket no.
And is there any relief to business owners who can't pay premiums?
Yes, there are. So they have to just be in contact with whoever their agent is. And that's another thing that we like to stress, to make sure that they contact their agent if there are financial challenges, and they just don't let their policies lapse. Because we had a situation where a business owner had a policy and he had cash value in the policy, and he was able to pull that money out to keep his business afloat. So, but you don't know that if you don't make that call to your agent. So I would just encourage the business owners to reach out to their agent if they have any concerns, issues, or any financial challenges with paying their premiums.
Okay. We have another question. When is the best time to switch from term life to whole life?
Really, anytime that your budget would allow. You know, the earlier the better, because again, it goes on your age. So the earlier the better. And that's a conversation, but again, it would be a sit down conversation with the agent to understand exactly how it would benefit the family and when it would benefit the family, and then giving that recommendation to the client so they can make this decision when they want to convert from a term to a whole life.
Great. That was the last question that I have.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Siobhan. Appreciate you. And again, I can't stress the urgency, because if you get your policy in your 20s, it's a lot better than trying to get your policy in your 50s. And, you know, please reach out to Siobhan if you have any other questions, and we will make this slide presentation available. Now we're going to hand it off to Lazina Kelly Andrada. And I have to say, Property casualty insurance, and I've been in finances for over 25 years, is probably the most mystical product of its time. And we own a number of properties, and Simone and I are always dumbfounded when we have to talk to our property agents. So I'm really looking forward to Lasagna to kind of teach us and educate us to make it make sense for us and how COVID is impacting those lines of insurance. So we appreciate you. So take it away.
Thank you, Nikki. I appreciate being here. I'll give you a little background for those of you who don't know me. My name is Lazina Kelly Andrade. I'm a State Farm agent in Berkeley. I have been in the insurance industry 32 years, almost 33 now, come to think of it. Yeah, almost 33 years in property and casualty. I'm a full service agency, but I really enjoy the property and casualty because I was the one when I first started that dealt with the national disasters, from the earthquakes to the wildfires. I'm the one explaining your policies to you, which has become a benefit to me when I'm dealing with my customers, because I can actually tell them what they need to do in order to have a successful claim process. The goal of my office, of course, is my vision is to help our customers identify their risk, provide products and services to preserve their personal wealth. But during this time, it's been very interesting because it's really astounding to see how many people have come together, including our customers, because when we make our checkup calls just to see how they're doing and to check in, many of them are doing really well and they're positive and they appreciate the calls. But then we have lost some customers to COVID-19 in my office. Those were some of the difficult conversations to have. Fortunately, a lot of those people's estates were set up, so our state attorney will be happy to hear that. And many of those people did have life insurance, so our life insurance agents will be happy to hear that. But not only that, I was able to help them with the estate planning, because when you have a trust, the title of your home changes. So your property and casualty insurance has to change as well. So your insurance is no longer the name like Lazina Kelly Andrade. My home will no longer be Lazina Kelly Andrade. If I shall pass, it'll be the estate of Lazina Kelly Andrade. And I've had to do some of those things in these past 3 weeks. But with regards to COVID-19, one of the things that I like about the organization that I'm affiliated with is that State Farm is giving $2 billion back in dividends to our auto insurance customers. That's a lot of money. In addition to that, because of the Department of Insurance regulations, the Department of Insurance said, hey, you can no longer cancel these people's policies for non-payment during this COVID-19 until May 31st. So what did State Farm do? We didn't cancel. We have not canceled anyone who has not paid their insurance. So they still have insurance in force because we know there are customers who are struggling right now. But come June 1st, instead of the customers having to pay that back payment from March till May, what they're doing is they're taking that amount of money that's past due for those that have it, and they're dividing it into 3 payments so that they'll give them time to catch up instead of collecting it all at once. I like that. I was sitting in my office on March 17th, along with a lot of other people with my staff sitting there, and our governor said, okay, you're getting ready to shut down. And I'm like, shut down? Like shut my office down? And fortunately, our organization was responsive enough that they were able to get 100,000 employees and agents working remotely within 24 hours with the systems being able to be operating. Yes, our office is currently working remotely. I go into the office 3 days a week to get the mail because I do have older clients who don't know how to read the routing numbers over the phone. And some of them don't have credit cards. They like to pay with cash. Unfortunately, you know, we can't take cash right now, but we are taking money orders. So I still go in to try to accommodate some of my older clients who still like to mail in their checks or like to drop off their check under the doors so that their insurance will be current. One of the other things that I know our organization is doing, we're donating a ton of money. We donated stuff for PPE, a lot of masks to a lot of the hospitals throughout the country. We're doing food banks. Local, just myself, have volunteered to give out food, to donate monies to after school programs so that the kids that were able to eat during the school year who can't are now able to still receive meals. That's just some of the good, what I call it, the good back, the feel good type of things that we're doing. But one of the things I want customers to understand, or even people who have property and casualty is not just auto insurance. Property and casualty includes homeowners insurance. It includes renters insurance. It includes personal liability umbrella insurance. And so what I've done with a lot of our customers during this time, because we have time, I call them. After I find out how they're doing, I say, do you have any questions? Do you want to look at some of your things? And some of those who actually need to review their coverages, and we have customers with multiple cars that they don't drive. Well, you don't have to pay the premium if you're not driving the car. Suspend the coverage, let it sit there, save that money, put that towards something else. Because some people are having to move, as we call it in the old days, rob Peter to pay Paul, to make some of their ends meet during this time. Some of the other things we're telling our customers is because it is going into fire season, and because I'm a property and casualty agent, fire season is very important to us. We're telling them the fire departments are starting to go around and looking in backyards and at their homes. If you have any trees, plants, and shrubs on your building, start removing that stuff during this time while you're at home. Do some of the, what our neighbors are calling it, the honeydew projects. The husbands are out there, or the wives are out there starting to cut away some of that stuff so that you don't get an unnecessary fine, because before you may not have had time, but right now you may have time because you're at home to take care of some of those things. Another thing that we're looking at is, other than the cancellation, is bills that are being passed due, not just for your auto insurance, but your bills for your homeowner's insurance. We're not canceling that. Now, granted, the $2 billion dividends that we're giving back is only for auto insurance because that's a mutual company. But if people are still having problems paying their fire insurance, if people are still having problems paying their life insurance or any of their other products, I, like the other agent said, I encourage you to contact your agent's office and let them know so that they can make arrangements to assist you during this time, to set those policies aside so that, okay, come June, we can start setting a payment arrangement so you can keep them in force. Another thing that we're doing to have our customers save money is in their automobiles, because they're not driving a lot. A lot of people aren't driving. One of the jokes in the office on when we do our Skype calls is, how does it feel to get 3 weeks to the gallon on your automobile? And you know, because you're not driving as much. So if you're not driving as much, let's look at some of those coverages. Do you really need the low deductibles because you're not as much at risk? Some people are adjusting their deductibles to higher amounts, from 500 to 1,000. Some people are even going 2,000 to lower their premiums. We're looking at ways to help customers save money during this time. And in addition to that, the other thing is, like the young lady said, who has life insurance, our customers who do have life insurance, who've had to take money out of their policies to keep their house afloat, not necessarily their insurance, but their house afloat. We've been able to assist with those things as well. So overall, I am very pleased with the immediate response that State Farm has taken to assist customers during this time. I'm very pleased with the fact that starting June 1st, a lot of customers are going to start seeing a rebate in their auto premiums up to 25%. If you are a monthly paying customer, that means you're going to be getting a credit on your bill up to 25%. If you're a customer that pays semi-annually and you've already paid your premium, then you're going to get a check in the mail for up to 25% in California. Different states have different rules, but in California, those are some of the things that we're doing. And I'm just very pleased to see that we're moving forward. I, unfortunately, will not be opening my office to the public come June 1st because I am aware that I do have staff. I do feel that it's still my job to protect them as well as myself. We will still be working remotely somewhat, gradually coming back into the office. Starting in July, when we start opening it to the public, you know, we're going to have to set in some requirements where people will have to wear masks, and we may only have 1 or 2 people in the office at a time. But throughout this whole thing, we are doing everything we can to accommodate customers. But what I am encouraging anyone that has any type of auto policy or fire policy, take a look at your coverages because you have time. Look and see that you have full coverage. Full coverage doesn't mean you just have liability coverage where if you're in an accident and you hit someone, are you covered? What we're finding is, not with us, but people who have hit us thought they had higher limits but didn't. Start reviewing some of those things because you may actually be able to save money. In addition to that, another thing that we're finding on the property and casualty side is, unfortunately, litigation has not gone away. So we are having a lot more auto accidents, not because we have more cars on the road, but because more cars are speeding because they know people aren't on the road. So I would caution people to still be careful when you're driving and to still drive, you know, the speed limit and watch out for the other drivers around you. And that's basically all I had for you today. Are there any questions?
Lizine, did you want me to share the document that you provided?
Yeah, let them see that because then they can see what State Farm is actually doing as far as the $2 billion, the remote workers, the money that they're giving back.
Okay.
So not me making it up. It's really,
So here's the document you were referring to.
that's the document we're referring to. We're still open 24/7. We still have a mobile app. People can still do quotes and things online. They can still interact with their agent, even though their agents aren't physically in their office. We're still taking care of our customers, as I shared earlier. And we're still giving back to the community in different areas. Different states are doing different things.
I really appreciate your comments, Lizina, about, reviewing things, because I'm going to make some assumptions with our audience that many times when you got your auto policy, just someone told you what your limits needed to be, and as long as they met your budget, you were okay. The
Right.
same with homeowner insurance. When you were going through purchasing, you really weren't necessarily involved in the decision making. A lot of times with these type of insurances, it's all based on your budget. And if
Right.
it made sense 5 years ago, it definitely may not make sense now.
Right.
And those small little nuances and changes could be very impactful. So I definitely would encourage everyone to take a look or talk with their agents, and at this point truly understand to where if you had to communicate what you have, you can talk about it intelligently and definitely take advantage of some of the strategies that you mentioned. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And then I think the other message before we get Jason on is, and when we talk about credit, we say the same thing. If you know that you're having a hardship, this is the time to have the conversation with your agent or with whomever that you owe. Let them know what's going on, because they can work with you a lot easier before it becomes a problem.
I agree.
So please, take the time to talk to the folks that can help you.
We have a question.
Yes.
If an incident like death or accident happens before the account is paid up to date, what happens?
When you say paid up to date, what are you talking about? If it's a person who hasn't paid their premium?
They didn't provide any additional information, but if Ms. Evans, if you want to provide some additional input, I can ask that.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm assuming we're talking about a car accident or something along those lines, because it's not very clear. If you're in an auto accident, right now, we're not showing anybody as canceled. Everybody is showing current. So if you have a current policy and you have a claim, more than likely, then we're going to move forward with that claim. But come June 1st, of course, they're going to start back collecting the premium. Because we have no legal policies right now.
I think that answered our question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So now we have Jason up to talk to us, and Jason and I go way back, and I've so enjoyed how he has developed his business and his brand, and we always have these great conversations about the economy, and he is a book guru. So if you are looking for a good financial book to read, to wrap your hands and arms around what's going on, he definitely would be a resource. And I think, talking about books, were you talking about giving something away today, Jason? You're on mute.
Whoever you guys want to raffle off to, this is a book I wrote 2 years ago that's written for times like these. It's written as a prediction about what I thought was going to happen, which actually is coming true right now.
Yeah. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Jason to share some of his insight on the economy, retirement, and all things related to COVID.
Thanks. Thank you. So welcome, everybody. You can start my PowerPoint.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for getting on the call. We'll give you guys a little background about myself, and then we'll get my name is Jason Matthews. I'm president and CEO of Matthews Financial Insurance Solutions. Let me talk about me and my firm. So I started off in the industry in 2004. And in 2009, there was a lot of things happening during the last Great Recession. And upon that time, we saw Wachovia close and Bear Stearns close. It was the biggest financial crisis that we have seen over the last 60-some years. And upon Bear Stearns, Wachovia closing, and all these other major banks happening, people going foreclosures, unemployment rate was at 12, 13%. I was this young whippersnapper who was crazy enough to start my business while there's blood in the streets, and I opened up my firm, Matthews Financial Insurance Solutions, back in 2009. Upon that now, we have now been in business for a little bit over 10 years. And I think at times like this, when you're talking to your financial retirement advisor, it is so important that you have somebody who's been through a recession or is a geek towards recessions and economies to help you get through these times. If you look at the next slide I have, I'm also, I do a lot of things for giving back. One thing is I am the president of the Urban Financial Services Coalition. It's a volunteer organization of financial advisors, wealth managers, insurance agents, and anything in the sphere of financial services where it gives out your money. And we do three things. One is we give money to people. We teach financial literacy in our community. Number two, we get more people in the financial services industry, and then we help them expand their practice. Also, I'm also a volunteer president of the Alzheimer's Services of the East Bay. And we can stick to the slide right here.
Okay.
At the same time, right now, I'm actually in the top 1% insurance of financial advisors in the world, as I am a $1 Million Roundtable member. 2 years ago, I did write my book, The Age of Self-Reliance. And the reason I wrote the book was I truly feel like this last upswing was a fake upswing that was fueled by fake debt, and we didn't learn our lessons that we had in 2000 and the last financial crisis. And we're seeing that today. And I think it's more important that you talk to a financial advisor today than any other time we have had in history. The reason being is this is a downturn. We have unemployment numbers where today it came out to 36.5 million people are now unemployed, which now puts us about 22% unemployment. While we're on this call, I just got an alert on CNBC that says Gavin Newsom offer all state employees a 10% cut because now states are having financial issues themselves and having a huge budget deficits on our local municipalities, our county municipalities, state, and even the federal government with all this printing. So it's very important that you understand what's happening in this place. Now, what I always tell people, you go to the next slide, please. And I do get excited. So if you guys put in the chat that I'm talking too fast, please let me know. We can skip this one right here. This is why you have for other meetings. So what we're in right now is I truly believe this downturn. I'm a big football guy and I'm a big sports guy, and this is like when I go to a sporting event and I'm in the tip-off happened, I'm in line, grab my soda, grab my popcorn, my food, and I'm getting down to my seats. We say the game just started, and I truly believe that what we having right now, people think this is going to be some real quick recovery, but the game just started. We're not even in the first quarter yet. And if you look at any of the last two downturns, we have multiple. Our downturns usually happen for 18 months for our economy, but for most people, those downturns might happen to 2 to 4 years until they fully recover. So upon that, today, because we lower interest rates so much, we print out tons of money. It is more expensive than ever to retire. So that means we have to plan better and be more swiftly upon our planning. So when I do my planning, we break everything down in 4 buckets. First bucket we have is our guaranteed bucket. And we go back to that slide we was just at. Upon the guaranteed bucket is the money you automatically put in. In return, the money you put in, you're going to get a guaranteed income coming out of that bucket. That can happen pretty much in 2 different ways. One is through our Social Security, and the second one, is our Social Security, and the second one is our pension plan. With both of them, we have to be careful. I think Social Security is always going to be there because I always get this question, will Social Security get away? Yes, Social Security is supposed to eventually run out by 2034. We'll probably eliminate shorter because of lack of FICA and everything else. But what's going to do is you're still going to get your money, but we might have a haircut of 77%. Now, with your pension, we've got to be very careful because the pension promise is only as good as the person promised that is able to do it, or the financial stability of who was ever given to us. So we have to be careful and watch the financial strength of that pension. And a great couple sites you can look at, one is Truth in Accounting, where you can pull up your city records a lot of times because most people have pensions now, our government, and you go to truthinaccounting.org. And you can pull up the financial report card of your city or entity, which is very interesting during these times. And then another one is pensionstsunami.com, I believe, or .org, which gives you different things about what's happening in pensions throughout the country. And there's a daily articles, blog pieces about that. The second bucket we have is our tax deferred bucket. And the tax deferred bucket say, you know what? I'm not worried about taxes today. I'm going to put this money in there. The money's going to grow tax deferred. And when we pull it out, we're going to pay taxes for this. And for most Americans, this is going to be a 401k plan, or 403b, or 457, or an IRA account. Now, for a lot of us, all our money are in these two buckets for most Americans. But the key to I tell everybody is that you want to stay diversified in your portfolio, not just in conservative, moderate, or aggressive, or making sure we have money in equities and bonds. But we want to be diversified in the our taxes standpoint as well, to have true diversification and to optimize that. So the third bucket we look at then is our tax-free bucket, where you say, you know what, with all this government spending, the stimulus package is extra $2,000 a month you're talking about, I feel like tax rates could go up in the future. If that's the case and you feel like that, you should, what we tell people is we want to diversify a little bit of our money and put it in our tax-free bucket or taxable bucket today. And that could be your Roth IRA, a Roth 401k plan, a 529 plan, cash value life insurance. Those are the items that we can use that could put in that tax-free bucket. And the last bucket we have is investment bucket. Our investment bucket could be our business, mutual funds and non-qualified retirement accounts, our stocks, any entity, our real estate, our apartments. I have a lot of clients that have real estate. Those are our investment bucket, where the strategies we use and the tax implications are a little bit more complicated. You go to the next slide. I coach baseball. I love baseball. And this phrase I always tell my kids, I have one of the top travel ball baseball teams in California. And I always say, if you can't play catch, you can't play baseball. So, and it's just like if you play football, if there's no blocking and tackling, doesn't matter how good your offense is, you're not going to win. It's the same thing now. So we have to make sure we do the proper things to protect ourselves in the meantime. One thing is having a proper emergency fund, especially during these periods. I just told you guys that the state of California, Gavin Newsom presented a 10% haircut. I think it's going to be worse on the state, on the county level, and the city level. We have to make sure we have proper health care, whatever that is. Remember, the number one reason people file for bankruptcy in America is still because of health care reasons. Even during the last great recession we had, people filed for bankruptcy all because of health care, more than people going in foreclosure. The next thing is income protection. So even though, yeah, I might have my health care taken care of, where they're going to pay the bills for it, I still need to make sure I still have money coming in to put a roof over my head, food on my table, and make sure those things are taken care of. And that's where we have income protection or disability insurance. Now, most of us probably get 60% of our pay through income protection at our job. That's usually just your base salary. But if you're a person who gets paid overtime, or if you're self-employed, or you get paid a lot of sales or commission or a huge amount of bonus, and you live off that basic income, you might have to look at different other ways, because that's beyond your traditional income protection. The fourth thing we will look at is long-term care planning. Right? Like I tell you, I'm on the board for Alzheimer's service in the East Bay, and we all think Alzheimer's and memory loss is all when we get older, but oftentimes it's not. And usually I tell people, let's plan for this when we're 45 to 50, but we have to look at it. And oftentimes when we hear long-term care plan, we think about insurance, but it's not just insurance. What is our plan? Is it our daughter? Is it our kids? Is it going to be our neighbor? Who's going to take care of us if we ever get sick? What is the lifestyle we have if we ever get sick? Do we want to be at home? Do we want to be at a facility? What is that going to be for us? And I always say, a true retirement plan is not completed unless we have a long-term care plan with it. And sometimes some type of long-term care insurance might be involved with it, but those are things we need to have a conversation with ourselves and our family members. And I work with a lot of women, and that's one thing I see that they've needed the most. And if you ever go to any care facility for people who are older, it's mostly women. It's about a 5-to-1 ratio, oftentimes from women to men. And I think this is something that women should consider a lot more than they do, especially as them being a caregiver. And the last thing is is estate planning. And a great thing Lauren talked about estate planning earlier, but if you have a stroke, God forbid, like my grandmother had a stroke, who's going to take care of those financial beings? Who's still going to write those checks out for you? Who's going to make those medical decisions for you? I had a case a couple years ago with an uncle of mine who had a stroke while he was on vacation in Utah, and they had to make the financial decision for him. But the problem with that was there was a conflict between his current wife and his sisters about that. And his wife wanted him to come back out to California, but his sister said, no, we should unplug him. It was a horrible mess. So we want to make sure we have an estate plan, not just when we're sick or we're passing away, but we're living, because guess what? We still got to pay those bills, and we don't want to lose those things while we're sick. So you go to the next slide, please. So when we look at retirement planning, we look at it as two different things. And let me know how many minutes I have left, Nikki. One thing is we have what we call our basic expenses we want to take care of is how much is our basic expenses we need to live on every month. And then the second portion of it is our luxuries and stuff. Maybe I want to go to Paris, even though we're not thinking about traveling right now. Or maybe we want to pay for a kid's college. But those are things that are luxuries that we want to take care of. The basics of our retirement planning is this. We would want to cover our basic expenses with our guaranteed money, which can flip to our next slide, right? We want to cover our basic expenses with our Social Security and our pension. And then any other money we have, we want to put that cover that with our shortfall should be covering that portion, whatever that is. So if your basic expense is $5,000, but Social Security and pension cover $4,000, you want to find out what money you have to cover that shortfall. And then the rest of your money, you want it to grow. One for inflation, and inflation is what we call a stealth tax where the price of things go up. Even though gas is $2.29, I remember when I first got my car, if you gave me $5, I used to drive somebody 15 miles with. They come back, you have gas all weekend. But we know those days are no longer here. So we know that inflation is always going to happen. Yesterday, it was announced that the price of food had the biggest jump we have ever seen in the last 50 years, more than we saw in the Great Depression, over a month-to-month jump in food prices. So we want to make sure our money grows so we can pay for inflation of food and the other basic other things that might grow at the same time, plus those luxuries. You can go to the next slide. And last but not least, this is how you guys can reach me. Here's my phone number. Here's my email. Here's my YouTube channel, which is great. Every Tuesday, I do a Zoom, a webinar with different people talking about different topics. This Tuesday, we have somebody for the oil industry talking about oil. Last Tuesday, we had Robert Schaffner, head of the MBA program entrepreneurship at Golden Gate University. Check out my YouTube channel, because all those are on that YouTube channel, and you can watch some great information during these times. You know, if you ever read one of my favorite books, The 48 Laws of Power, they say one of the biggest mistakes is a man to be isolated. And during these times, the worst thing you possibly is be isolated during this time. It is important that you have a team like you have right now, and it's good that you get this information, but it's so important to have that team. Have your friends you can talk to about the stress that you might go in, because I know all of us might be stressed during this time. We don't know what the unknown is about our job or our business certainty. Make sure you have that business coach with you. You take care of your health. Make sure you're a financial person, your estate planning attorney, your accounting, CPA, because a lot of this stuff is so confusing during this period. So thank you again, Nikki, for this. If you guys do have any questions or anything, make sure you put those in the questions or give me a call right here.
And yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say there was a question. Someone stated that they are at the retirement age, a state worker that will get a 10% cut that will affect their retirement. Should they retire now?
It was something where we have to go off and talk about it. That proposal for 10% by Gavin Newsom he just announced that today. It depends on what they say with the union and the union negotiations. So it's something that we can't give that answer over this. It's more of let's look at your full picture and how things will look like.
Thank you, Jason. And I always say when I was in financial services, there should never be a direct yes or no. It should always be depends. And if someone is able to give you a direct answer without really knowing the full picture, I would always, think of it, think about that information a little differently. because to what Siobhan said, if you are truly serious about managing your finances, it has to be a full examination, and everything is intertwined and connected, hopefully as you've seen it today. So it really will be imperative to sit down, have a conversation, and as when we assist our clients through the home ownership process, we're not just being nosy, we're not trying to get in your business, but there's information that we need to know to make an appropriate assessment of how to guide you. And I have the greatest confidence in the individuals that have been put in front of you today that will take that time to have that conversation with no commitment of doing business with them, but just getting good information. So I want to thank the panelists. Jason, you did mention another website. I got thetruthinaccounting.org, but what was the other one related to annuities?
And not annuities is for pensions is another pension one. Block is a pension to tsunami or to tsunami.org as well.
Okay,
And
so pensions,
I'll type that
tsunami.
in for you. Right.
Okay, thank you. Would you mind doing that for us, Jason?
Yeah, I definitely would do that for you as well.
Okay, so we're going to give everyone a minute or two just to see if there's any more burning questions out there. I appreciate you guys spending your afternoon with us. I think we also at this time are going to be putting a survey in the chat box, because as I always say, we definitely want to know what we're doing well, but we definitely want to know things that we could do differently. I do want to respect people's time, because what I have learned is just because we're not in the office, people are still working. So this time slot has been a challenge. So I do appreciate those who have had to move things around to be with us today. But then also want to remind you, next week, we're going to have 2 realtors come to the conversation to talk about the housing market, to understand if it's a buyer's market, a seller's market, and what's happening to the market related to COVID. So please sign up for that class. I want to say, and Simone helped me out, I didn't see it on our calendar, but is the next session May 21st or 23rd?
So the next one is going to be May 21st, and then we have
21st.
another one on the 28th.
Okay, so May 21st is where we sit down with the realtors to talk about the buyer and seller market. And then on the 28th, we'll be talking about real estate investment during COVID. So with that, I don't see any burning questions. I want to again thank our panel for spending their afternoon with us. All of the information was shared today will be shared with you either in the chat box or via email. And if you have any other direct questions, you know where to find us. So thank you guys again so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.